Hello, and welcome to episode 32 of Let Your Words Count, where we explore the meanings behind the words that shape our lives. I am Gary Gant, joined today by Ethan Merriweather. Please
Hello.
remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Leave us a comment if you'd like to suggest the word of the day, and we will give you a shout out if we use your word. All right, so today's word, Ethan, we are diving into the word skepticism. Skepticism. We will jump into the definition. Followed by that, Ethan will give you the etymology or the history and derivation of the word. Skepticism's definition: a doubting or questioning attitude towards knowledge, facts, or opinions stated as truth. Skepticism: a doubting or questioning attitude towards knowledge, facts, or opinions stated as truth. All right, Ethan, if you want to give us the etymology.
All right. The etymology for a skepticism, it actually comes from the Greek word skeptikos, meaning to reflect, to consider, to look carefully. In ancient philosophy, skepticism was a school of thought focused on questioning certainty and suspending judgment.
A whole school focused around that. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, actually. Interesting.
And suspending judgment, questioning certainty and suspending judgment. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Go ahead, G. You have a thought on that starting off?
Well, I think it's there's instantly going to be the kind of review on this word, right? Because immediately in this, just as we kind of go through our usual format, the first word that pops up in my mind talking about skepticism is credibility, right? Because if someone for whatever reason appears to not be credible or has a history of not being credible, immediately I'm going to be skeptical of anything that person has to say. I can think of a lot of examples of that. We don't have to go into them, but credibility plays a big part in whether or not somebody's going to kind of get the benefit of the doubt that something that you say, am I going to, and at least initially, kind of be leaning towards accepting it as truth or not. If a person tends to lie, tends to inflate the truth, tends to bend things in a way that's convenient for them, I'm more likely going to be skeptical of the things that they say and not be as willing to accept it. But what are your thoughts on that?
This was a interesting word because just looking at the school of thought from a Greek standpoint was
Right.
really interesting for me.
Mm-hmm.
The questioning the certainty of something, when you're talking about the credibility, of an individual, or not necessarily an individual. It can be many things, right? It can be systems. It can be
Absolutely.
a lot of things that causes a doubt or
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. A doubting. Doubt is a powerful thing because it creates a lot of stagnation. Doubt causes you it within the word itself, or within the definition itself. It actually causes an unbelief. You know
Interesting.
what I mean? Like, if you really think about, if you're skeptical of something, let's go back to what you talked about, credibility.
Right.
The person that seems to be credible at first, but they've broken that bond of trust or whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
it'll be very hard for you to gain that trust in that person, and that the immediate response from you is you're very skeptical of this individual's intentions.
Absolutely.
And I think we talked about intentions before, right?
Right.
What are the intentions of someone? If you're skeptical, it's going to cause stagnation. It won't allow progress to be a furtherance of an action. You know
Very
what I'm
important.
saying?
Very important.
And so when you talk about credibility, you're already stagnating or causing a halt in pursuit or
Mm-hmm.
pursuing a goal. So that's something that I was thinking about, when we were, because you and I talk a lot about these things. When you're unable to believe in something, just think about how harmful unbelief is.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And when you're skeptical of something, which, okay, let's take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
skeptical is not 100% negative thing,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
There's a benefit in being skeptical of something. Going back to what you said about credibility,
Sure.
right? It something honoring a particular trust that a an action will be fulfilled or whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And you brought up an important counterpoint to that, right? There's skepticism as it applies to the growth or learning of the individual as well. Right? So like you said, right, skepticism can apply if I'm talking about a conversation or listening to a speaker give me or present me, present certain information to me. I can be skeptical about what a person says, but to your point, I can be skeptical about something that I read in a book. I could be skeptical about
Very good.
information that I myself come across. I can be skeptical about what my own eyes see. As we talk about the way AI has advanced
Yes.
now,
Oh,
right?
my goodness.
I'm skeptical when I see somebody give a speech or make a comment or in an interview, and something seems kind of extreme. I have to be skeptical and I have to question and look very carefully at the video to see, are the lips really syncing up with the words? Is this really the way the person moves? Is their head being static while their lips are moving? I have to be skeptical even of things my eyes see today.
Ooh.
So it's not just conversation one-on-one talking to another person. It's anything that you consume with your five senses is, in this day and age, the way misinformation and disinformation run rampant. The benefits of tricking somebody out of their money and the benefits of being able to influence somebody's beliefs to manipulate them all make it where somebody that's maybe not as honest can use words and information to try to manipulate somebody to do something outside their character or not advantageous to them. And as long as that's true, there's going to be reason for healthy skepticism for any kind of information, anything you take in with your five senses whatsoever. Right.
I like that. I like that you said healthy skepticism.
Right.
And I think that that's very an interesting point that you made about, and definitely putting those two words together, because that lets us know what we were talking about previously, that being skeptical or skepticism is not a totally negative thing. It's not. It's not. To me, once again, if a person have a reason to doubt, they probably should.
Absolutely.
In some type of way, right? It depends. See, this is another word that the credibility goes along with the experiences, right? If there's an experience that harmed you or hurt someone that you will create some form of buffer,
Sure.
or a way to allow you. See, this is the thing, because I was about to say allow you not to judge.
Right.
But judging is not necessarily a bad thing all the time, because judging is all within skepticism.
And judging the information more so than the person.
Yes. See, the information is the key.
Right.
So what are you becoming with that information?
Right.
So if you, this is the reason why you have to consider, like what the definition was talking about, is consider the approach or the evaluating the information and the data that's coming your way. And really is really up to the person that's receiving that information.
Absolutely.
To actually, that's their job. To me, in my way of thinking, if information is coming to you, it's your job to evaluate.
Absolutely.
Any information that comes to you, it can be harmful, it can be deadly, or it can be joyous and it can be beneficial. That's really up to us to make that to create a conducive environment within our own mind to be able to receive or reject. You know what I'm saying? The information.
I do, but you bring up what you're saying right now brings up a very important point in my mind, a very critical point. Because think about how many systems or schools or authoritative figures in any way, shape, or form tell us that we have to accept information without questioning it.
That's true.
You are not allowed the freedom and flexibility of skepticism in certain forums.
Yeah.
So you have to ask yourself, why is that? In what realm is it that you want to have somebody accept a word or accept information or an instruction without questioning or any skepticism whatsoever? What does that do to the person?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was just what, kind of
No, man,
hit
that's
my
good.
mind as you were talking. That's a very important thing, right?
I think it is because we haven't been conditioned to do that in many ways. Society, even in our homes, we were raised in homes where you had
You don't question
you
authority.
don't que-
You don't, right? I mean, seriously.
and man, listen, man.
Talk about it.
It's tough because the easy pickings of skepticism is I'm gonna use this, and you already know is politics. When you look at politics, those are the easy, those are the ripe surface level, because this is the reason why I don't put. The Bible talks about being careful to put your trust in man,
Absolutely.
right? Why is that? Because man changes all the time, right? So when someone comes to you, until you build that relationship, because I think skepticism, to remove skepticism, sometimes is about fostering a proper relationship with people. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And and once you create that trust in that person, or that that person, that group, or whatever, then I'm not going to say skepticism is removed, but it's softened a little bit. Your skepticism is softened,
Right.
and I think that's the healthy skepticism, because what it is your approach to the matter, whatever what the subject matter is. Your soft side is going to kick in and say, okay, I'm going to give this person a little bit of credibility, And so skepticism is kind of weaned out a little away. It takes time.
It does.
It takes
Absolutely
time.
does.
Just think about, I'll just use this as a quick example, right?
Right.
Like, it's 3 seconds on the clock, right? Right? And the coach says, I want I want Jordan to take the ball out, and I want him to pass it to Rodman. If that don't cause some skepticism,
Right.
if that don't cause some skepticism, I don't know what does.
I feel you.
I'm like, your coach, you're
Right.
point shaving, man, or whatever.
Right.
And, he is not, because that's kind of what I'm saying. If you look at like skepticism, another thing is, this is the beauty. This is the beauty. This is the beautiful part about skepticism, is that it's in your control to look either highly of the situation or less, in order for you to put things in place where things can be resolved with proper care, if that makes sense. Because I've fought with skepticism. Like me, I'm telling you, I am skeptical.
Well, and again,
I'm a
it's a
skeptical
healthy way
person.
to be skeptical. Absolutely. That's all right.
Go ahead.
No, I wasn't interrupting. I'm agreeing with what you said, bro.
No,
Go
you
ahead.
good. No. I was just saying, like, by nature, I know that I'm a skeptical person, right? Because I'm a very cautious person, right? And I want to make sure I'm very clear with this. If there's an unbelief mechanism within my skepticism, I'm evaluating that the unbelief doesn't turn on, right? If
Say
I'm
it one more time.
okay, I don't even know what I said, but what I'm saying is, since I know by nature I'm pretty much a skeptical person of all things, right?
Okay.
It's not because I want unbelief to be a part of
Gotcha.
my being,
I follow you. Okay.
but what it is I want to make sure that if within my power there is light that can be produced. You see what I'm saying? If skepticism is about judging that harm it does not come to me or the people that I love. That's kind of like how I use skepticism. It's about a service that darkness, whatever's hidden in darkness, can be clearly seen when the light is shown. That's where truth comes in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like with skepticism, it causes you to consider instead of just jump right away. Hey, I believe with exactly everything you say. You know what I mean?
I think the time element is important.
The time is everything. See, beautiful. Can you explain that a little bit more? Because I love that. It's time. Yeah,
so I think what I'm pulling from what you're saying is in maybe an intersection of wisdom and skepticism.
There you go. Beautiful.
Is withholding belief or judgment until you've arrived at the facts. Right. So when we look at, as we were kind of doing some of the research on this, and part of like the definition and the positive and negative, skepticism viewed positively when it's questioning assumptions and seeking the truth. And it looks at where there's philosophers who their entire use of skepticism was, again, challenging assumptions and a search for certainty. So in that seeking of truth and searching for certainty, sometimes you're dealing with a topic where the truth and certainty does not instantaneously when you hear information.
100%.
And I increase my skepticism if I have somebody that's trying to rush me to a decision when I haven't yet weighed all of the data points.
Yeah.
And if somebody can't respect that 9 times out of 10, if it's something I can back out of and say, if you can't manage to wait and let me, and this is where you got to be careful when you start seeing things online where it's like you got this timer all of a sudden and you have this manufactured urgency. Mm-hmm. You have to be skeptical. Why are you trying to rush me to make a decision before I have time to evaluate the facts? I click on this link and you want me to buy this system, and all of a sudden I got 5 minutes before this discount disappears. What am I going to find if I look at it for 6 minutes and 7 minutes? If I dive deep enough into your system, are you worried that if I look more than 5 minutes, I'm going to find out that you're lying or that there's something untrustworthy about your system? That's that time element. Give me, if you want to be trustworthy, you have to present information to people and allow them enough time to go back, and the word we hear all the time in work, right? Trust but verify. Mm-hmm. If I want to be credible, if I want people to look at me as being credible and being a truth teller, I'm going to present information, and I'm going to, because the way I found I had to kind of start doing that, start approaching that trust but verify thing, because as humans, sometimes if you think you've garnered enough credibility and trustworthiness of yourself, you might want to be taken at your word. You might get offended or a little bit upset if people say, great, thank you for the information. I want to go and kind of look into this myself. Mm-hmm. And sometimes somebody might kind of feel like, oh, well, how come, is my word not good enough kind of thing, right? So the way I've kind of flipped that, and as we always talk about a call to action, a way to kind of flip something from positive to negative, I prefer to operate in a way that if I'm giving somebody information that I know is difficult or that I know has a major impact, like you said, there's a potential for harm to be done if this information is wrong. As the provider of the information, if you don't have anything to hide, if you're not keeping secrets, if you're not being malicious, if you're not operating in darkness, wanting to manipulate, wanting to influence, all those things, I prefer to give information and say, here, this is the information. You don't have to look at it right here, right now in front of me. I want you to go and take the information. I want you to research and digest and study for yourself. Study to show yourself approved. Mm-hmm. Look at it for yourself. And then when you're ready, let's come back and have a conversation. Yeah. I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to wait for you to say, I'm going to trust your information. I'm going to tell you, don't trust me. Go verify the information. And when you're ready, come back and we can have a conversation. I don't have to worry about waiting until somebody offends me with the trust but verify. I'm just going to say, hey, take this information. This is what I have so far. See if you can make something more. See if you have more information. If you can get more to supplement this. If you can find contradictory points, whatever, take this, go see what you can do with it and let me know what you find.
Love it. Love it.
And I think that's how we have to operate if we're going to work with integrity.
Man, You said quite a bit there.
I did. I'm sorry.
No, that was good. I think that if you think about skepticism, in that regard, the time element, and you saying, and I love that you put a little bit of wisdom in there, because a lot of times when people, oh, you're a skeptic and whatnot, even that's a terminology or some type of belief system. It's a skeptic. Yeah, I'm a skeptic.
So
like what do you?
And
Yeah, go ahead.
That's where I think too it kind of gets into another word that comes up with skepticism is cynicism. If I'm the person that by default I don't believe anything, that I distrust everything and everyone, that becomes a cynic. That's not that's skepticism, but that's like the extreme negative end of skepticism where I don't believe anything from anyone. Yeah. Doesn't matter what you bring, how much data, how much evidence, whatever. I disbelieve everything by default until proven otherwise. So again,
well, the thing is, the question is, like, that's a very good point, man. Because the one thing is, and I'm not talking about anyone that have that type of mindset at all. And I know that's not what you're talking about. Right. But I think it's the awareness of if a person does have that mindset, it actually creates. It doesn't create progress.
Right.
But it maybe it may be not for that person. I don't know, because I'm not that. I don't have that mindset, and I'm not lifting myself up, and I'm not lowering them down. It has nothing to do with that. I think what it is can we create a conducive environment that data and that information can be evaluated, so we can reach a particular resolution.
Yes,
I think that's the key, right?
Yes.
So if you want to sit, if people, not you or people or anything like that, because once again, in a nutshell, we all have our moments of skepticism, and we even can be cynical in some type of way, right?
Absolutely.
But I'm glad you brought that up, because this is very interesting, because I never thought about going down that path. The extreme skepticism. That's like, oh man. I gotta think about that a little bit. Yeah.
Because if I'm that provider of information that says, take this information, spend your time, verify, do whatever you need to do, and come back when you're done. If I'm talking to a cynic, I might not want to waste my time. If there's no convincing you, no matter what information, and this is where this comes back to another word we did, and I don't know why the word is escaping me right now. But, or maybe it was kind of an ancillary conversation we had, but a person that is cognitive dissonance, a person that is so determined to accept and stay with the position that it doesn't matter what information, what data you bring to them that contradicts that, they're going to stay with that ad hoc, that defend the theory at all costs kind of thing. Yeah. I'm taking this position, and I'm going to stay at this position no matter what else comes, no matter what you say, no matter what data you present. This is my position. I'm standing here. If I know that person is not going to be moved by any information, by any data, by any contradictory points, they're determined to stay where they are, I'm likely not going to spend my time or waste my time, if I'm being honest, trying to give that person, and this also goes back to the discussion we had with harm and harmony, right? If I'm going to talk about and be serious about trying to achieve harmony and to achieve peace, I have to allow time.
Very good.
Right? For a serious conversation to take place. I have to allow time for sincerity, and I might be standing here and you're standing there. We're at opposite ends of the spectrum. Let's acknowledge that. But let's also take the time to say, okay, you might think I'm a bad person, and I don't want to hear I'm a bad person because I think I'm a good person. But you have data points. Hey, you shot this rocket over here, and when you shot this rocket and you were going for this military installation, you killed a family at the same time. From your perspective, and not just your perspective, that's going to be kind of without any kind of objection. If you make the mistake of killing a civilian and you were trying to go for a military target, you've caused harm to a non-combatant. That's a bad thing. And I don't think there's ever a place where somebody just might say that's just okay, or that's the intended thing to do, right? So you have to kind of be aware and be available to have that honest conversation and let somebody say what their true perspective is. And you have to be willing to listen to the data. If you're just not going to hear it and say, I'm a good person no matter what you say, there's nothing for us to talk about.
Yeah. Man.
I'm not going to spend time trying to give you data, trying to convince you otherwise, because you've made your hill on, I'm going to stand here until you knock me off of it, or I'm never going to budge. then I'm never going to have a conversation with you. I'm not going to waste my time trying to convince you otherwise.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. This is actually a broad topic
It
if you really
is.
think about it, and actually goes through so many. It goes through many dynamics. Because you can talk to it as a receiver and a person. Really, most of the time, it's the receiver, right? Like for skepticism, right? Is you're receiving information or you're receiving intentions and different things. I was going back to your word that you said about the defaults, where you default, and you talked about the cognitive dissonance and the person that is not there. They don't realize that a particular way of thinking is not helping them,
Right.
but because of their stands or their default, it's a default. I'm gonna just use this as a default mechanism. The default mechanism is not actually allowing them to improve, right? There's I've done it myself. I'll just put myself out there. Like there's been times where there's been valuable opportunities that have come my way.
Sure.
And I rejected because of my own skepticism,
Sure.
right? And then later on, you've learned with the information that was given, you say to yourself like, "Wow, I missed out on that."
Absolutely.
And but this is where the buffer comes in again.
Deep.
That you with that experience, you don't go full tilt, but you still hold the skepticism, but like you said earlier about healthy skepticism, I believe that is a very important process, at least to develop in one's mind, so you don't miss out on something. Because just think about it, man. I don't mean to talk and harp on this. I really do not mean to harp on this at all. But I think it has to be said about politics, about religion, about schooling, about education, about all these things, right? So these things that are in our brain, right, in our mind, we have signals, we have these sensors in our head that are valuable to allowing us to grow if you use them properly.
Yes.
The sensoring in our bodies and in our minds and our thoughts, the spirit, our soul, is given to us for improvement, not for destruction.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
But you can't help if skepticism is a part. What if we didn't have skepticism? Just think about it. Like, what if skepticism was not a thing, right? That means that people will be screwed over left and right across the board in some way. And I'm not sure if I'm even hitting the full. That's what the full spectrum of the word altogether, because I was thinking about because we talked about politics briefly, just briefly. I mean, we already know. We
know the usual offenders.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't want to go there. And even religion, right? When you talk about religion, it's the same type of thing. Because, it's interesting, like, even when you read out of one book, there are thousands, they said thousands of religions that come out of books. So if someone comes to you with some type of thought processes, we are conditioned to say, I don't know about that.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But I've learned, like, lately, that's kind of one of the reason why we're talking about these beautiful words is taking a step and say, you know what? Maybe I'll think about that again. I'll think about that again, because once again, I've learned through failure that I probably should have put on healthy skepticism instead of just full blown, I will not do that. But there were some experiences that I've learned, some good, some bad. Hopefully I'm saying that right. And hopefully I'm not confusing anybody on the call or anything like that. There was also a word that you said earlier is about the time element. To go back to that, I think that was a pretty good approach too, because one of the words that I wrote down was urgency. Why is it so urgent to make a decision based off of this data and the information? Why does everything have to be, stopped and you have to listen to what I'm saying, or the information that's given to you. You have to make this decision. Like you said, it's the last 6 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
How come every time I turn on the YouTube social media, I always say, get your last, it's only 3 left here. There's always a urgency there, right? And I know it's deeper than that. I know we're talking kind of at a surface level concerning skepticism. But there was another thought that I had while you were saying that. It was, oh my goodness, it left my mind. Go ahead, G. Go ahead, because I have to think about it.
Yeah, so I think, and as you were talking, another thing that came to mind is that sometimes skepticism is a defense mechanism.
Oh, 100%. Man.
It's a response to having been hurt, lied to, some kind of trauma. And then that person builds up these barriers, these walls where somebody lied to me and hurt me before, I'm not going to be lied to again. And again, goes back to that cynicism. It's a trauma response sometimes, right? So we can't. I don't judge people for it when it comes to that. You know what I mean? It's like we said, if there's going to be a such thing as healthy skepticism, and healthy skepticism is a person is trying to be cautious before they accept data or a conclusion, because they want to make sure that they're minimizing harm to themselves. I understand that. I support that. And again, I think anybody that has good intentions and is not operating on some kind of realistic timeline will be reasonable in saying, take your time, look at it, and if we have a timeline, that's what it is. But be honest about it. Don't have some manufacturer, go to a link and it's like this link has a timer. If you don't respond in 10 minutes, that 10 minutes is just arbitrary. Somebody that goes to that link in 20 minutes from now is going to have that same 10-minute timer that's up. That's arbitrary. It's not a real thing. It's manufactured urgency. Again, it's that kind of contrived sense of urgency to manipulate somebody. So be skeptical for something like that, right? But to your point, we have to be sure that information helps us grow. And if you are not an all-knowing person that doesn't have access to all truth already, there is information out there that you don't have and that you don't know. If you're skeptical about everything, you are stifling and stopping your potential to grow because you're not ready to accept any more information. What about that thing out there that you don't know anything about, that you're capable of grasping and understanding of, but you reject it? And because you reject it, now you're stopping your growth, you're stopping your opportunity to learn something, because again, your default is, I don't want to accept anything new. I'm not comfortable with that.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you said that, because you just reminded me of what I was about to say. So I appreciate that, man. When you talk about healthy skepticism, you know what the healthy skepticism is? It's starting to ask the right questions.
Absolutely.
That's what I was thinking about. When you're able to, because it's not what's being said, it's what's not being said. You know what I mean? It's try to find that question or that thought pattern that's in this person in order to for one thing, I see value in talking to this person.
Right.
Rather they're trying to sneak me, manipulate me.
Right. Yep. For sure. For sure.
Even though they may not realize that they have value in themselves at this time, right? Because going back to your thought about like, why do I waste my time? And I wanted to kind of challenge that a little bit and say, okay, what if we have to deal with this person, right? You know what I'm saying? Let's say, what if we have to sit there, we have to deal with a person that's their intention is to not receive anything that you have to say, or whatnot, right? Yes. If that's the case, then we have to allow skepticism softly, or healthy skepticism, to create, once again, a conducive environment where we can ask the right questions to see what the intentions are. Or if I'm the person that is being the result of skepticism, if I'm within my heart, I'm coming to someone and someone is doubting my information, right? Do I also create the conducive environment that they can understand that this relationship is important, right? I see you smiling over there. You got something? Go ahead, man.
No, bro, go ahead.
Yeah,
I want you to finish your thought.
yeah.
Man.
So because what I was thinking, is do is this real?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's real. It happens on both sides,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do we allow skepticism across all spectrums create this environment that everyone can learn? You know what I mean? And your point is getting. I'm just use this point, man. I've been reading like Mark 9.
Mm-hmm.
I mean Mark 8,
Mm-hmm.
and it was amazing to me where where Jesus fed the 5,000, 5,000 people and different things like that, right? And he did a beautiful miracle, prayed over the food, and he distributed it, ended up having, 12 baskets, 7, he had a good number after of bread and fish after he did his miracle.
Right.
He said he got on a boat, right? And he crossed over, right?
Mm-hmm.
When he got there, he said that the Pharisees, the religionists of that day, was there waiting for him. Mm-hmm. And they said, Master, give us a sign. And you said that the scripture said that he was kind of frustrated. You could tell he was like, like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's real.
Right.
That's one thing
Absolutely.
I love reading the scripture about Jesus. You have to like really. He was real.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? He was frustrated with
Right.
some things, right?
Right.
And he was just like, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod, right?
Mm-hmm.
But his point that he was making is like, they were skeptical of this man.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I feel that at times I have information like us right now. I would say that I believe that what we're doing right here in some way, we're trying to develop a environment so people can have a yearning and a drive to pursue these beautiful words themselves so they can be empowered
And be better.
right? I think that's what Jesus was doing. I think his whole ministry was about empowering
No question.
people.
No
End of
question.
story.
No question.
And it was not wallowing in the mire. It was not. It was really empowering people because they saw his words. They were astounding words, and they were uplifting words, and they were words that they've never heard before. You see, so when you have other religionists that were skeptical, they were skeptics of him because they questioned and if you want to do your research or whatnot, please do yourself a favor and like really put yourself in the mindset of how they were back then because it's really no different than how people operate today, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
So the reason why I'm talking about the skeptics, like Jesus was not able to even do any miracles
Right.
in the towns that knew him.
Right.
Why? Because they were skeptical. You know what
That's
I'm
right.
saying?
That's right.
So I just wanted to share that with you. Go ahead.
That's interesting.
I know you had a thought too, man.
I'm not gonna share that thought. That was yeah. You
No,
already
go
know.
ahead, man.
No, I mean it's I'm used to being greeted with skepticism because and again things you and I have talked about.
Now I am.
You you well know, right? And that's why I'm saying I've kind of changed the way I approach difficult information because if I know something I'm about to say is difficult, I don't want to make anybody feel like they've been influenced or forced. I don't want to make them feel like, Gary, why did you tell me this? It's like I'd rather, if it's something that's difficult, take your time with it. I'll try to give you what it is about this thing that's difficult, in a way that you can understand, but for you to go back and review on your own whether this resonates with you or not. And if it doesn't, that's fine, but that's where I'm saying like I've adjusted my approach to be like, here, take this and you go sit with it. Don't be convinced right here because it's me, whether you trust me or don't trust me, know me or don't know me, or whether what I say sounds good or whether the presentation hit all your points of I can accept this. Regardless of all that, take it back and go back and study and analyze for yourself to make your own decision.
Yes.
So having been a person that's had to deal with information that's difficult for whatever reason my life presents those things to me, I'm used to being greeted with skepticism. and I don't get upset at it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
I'm expecting it, and I've been on the other side of being skeptical of some of the same information that I deal with and accept today. You know what I mean? So I'm mindful of how it sounds, how difficult it may be. And again, I don't have anything to hide. So I'm like, take all the time you need. And not only that, and this is where, again, conversation that we've had where I might take a position and get challenged. You know what I mean? There's things you've challenged me on that have made me go back and say, okay, I maybe was taking this confrontational or difficult position, and it made me reevaluate. Like maybe nope, that's not altogether it. I got to adjust some more, and
I'm the
that
same way.
open discussion and dialogue allowed me to fall back a little bit from whatever position I was taking and saying I need to reevaluate that. And that's what, again, that real discussion, the harmony discussion we had back in a couple weeks ago. If two parties sit down at the table and are open and honest and allow that time and are
Yes.
completely, I'm gonna share, this is what I think, and I know it's not popular, go. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And then allow that person time to come back and say, okay, I didn't like this, I didn't like this, I like this, I'm gonna think about this. You know what I mean? But to have that open conversation and that back and forth. My last point, real quick,
No, go ahead, man.
because I don't know if I think you did the show Three Body Problem on Netflix.
Okay.
Love that show. I love sci-fi movies, right? So I love that show. But there was a particular scene that keeps coming up in my mind as we're having this conversation on skepticism. The guy who was kind of leading the group that was waiting for, and I don't want to give the whole show away, there was a group kind of interfacing with an alien. Okay, and the group that was kind of waiting for and positive about and looking forward to this alien's arrival, right? They were having, kind of having discussions to kind of brief them on human behavior and human culture.
Okay.
And he was reading from the book, the Red Riding Hood book. And in that book, the fox ate the grandmother, dressed up like the grandmother, waited in the grandmother's bed for Red Riding Hood to come in, and then started talking to Red Riding Hood as if it was the grandmother. You know the story. I'm not going to rehash the whole children's story here. But as he was reading this story, and they stopped him like, wait a minute. So, they were asking all these questions, like you said, right? Asking these probing questions to get to the truth. Why did the wolf try to fake like it was the grandmother? Why did Red Riding Hood, not see that it was the wolf and not run away? Did the wolf want to eat her? Did she know he wanted to eat her? And all these kind of questions back and forth. And what it came down to at the end was, okay, so I'd like to go and meet this fox and meet this Red Riding Hood. And he's like, well, you can't. He's like, well, why can't I? Because it's a story. And their response was, so this story is a lie about a liar. And he was like, I guess you could say that. And she was like, are you all like this? And he was like, I guess in a way, when it suits us as much as we don't want to, sometimes we all lie.
Wow.
And again, I don't want to spoil the whole show, but that moment was really heavy on this skepticism topic because there was a long pause and he kept asking, are you there? Are you there? And it was a long pause. And their response is kind of the way I think about stuff. Their response was, we're scared of you. That's not really my approach. But in that fear of, if you can't be honest, I'm not sure if we can really have a solid and a real relationship.
Wow.
And the dynamic of their relationship changed in that moment. And that's kind of how I approach it. It's like, if you're not going to be honest, if you show yourself as not trustworthy and think that that's normal or it's acceptable, if it benefits you, I don't know how much we have to talk about.
Wow.
That was just again, that the moment of that show, it was like it was an important turning point in that show. But again, that showed that skepticism and the reason why somebody can be and the reason why it's justified at times, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
That was deep. That was really deep because if you lose trust in someone, that's tough, man.
It is.
That's tough. And to go back to what you were talking about your experiences and how you felt.
Mm-hmm.
For those that feel that the information that they have, well, let me take a step back before we say for those that feel that the information that they have. I do want to say, and while you were talking, and while I know you, right? Mm-hmm. We've been homies for a very, very long time. So as far as your integrity and different things like that, I have no question in that.
Mm-hmm.
What I want the audience to understand with this man that I've known for years is, I know this man has not made this stuff up. Okay. So when you are building relationships with people and establishing true and strong bonds with people, their credibility is going to be based off the information that they have, and that they are not making things up, and the information that they have, they're not trying to manipulate hearts. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's very, very important to understand the characters of the people that we associate ourselves with as well. Mm-hmm. I just thought about that because I wanted to let you know that the information that you share with me and we break bread on and we talk about all the time, it has really helped me, man. It's challenged me as well. So just as much as, I challenge you and you challenge me,
Absolutely.
and I
iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, it has to be done that way.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
I don't want you to agree with everything that I agree with.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We won't grow that way.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And be skeptical. Say, hey, E, I don't know about that. We have to do that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that's that healthy. See, that to me, that's that healthy skepticism that we've established within our relationship, and the credibility of honoring that. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And now to the point, I'm like, man, what you got?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, what you got? What's on your
Right.
mind? What's on your mind? What's been stirring around in your thoughts? I do that with a couple of other friends as well, because I think that, for one thing, there's a lot of information out there.
Absolutely.
What kills me about skepticism that is choosy. Skepticism.
Yes, bro. Yes.
Skepticism is choosy because certain things you think to yourself like, you believe that, but you were strong over here, but you believe that. It's so choosy,
all the time,
man.
bro. All the time.
Yeah, but that's kind of what I was saying. You had something else.
That's interesting. No, man. That's being choosy about the information. That's deep. Because, and again, I think I've found myself guilty of that before. And to your point, that's why I think we can be skeptical with each other, because there's like that, like you said, that foundation of going on 30 years of friendship. There's that foundation of, I know you to be an honest person. And I know that you're not trying to be deceptive, and that you're trying to be the best person you can and seek for information that's going to make you the best person that you can be. With that foundation and with that kind of there as the starting point, you can tell me you're skeptical. And I know it's not meant to do harm. I know it's not, gee, I hate you and you're stupid. And you know what I mean? It's not coming from that place of, no, you're just dumb. It's coming from a place of, I'm not sure I'm there, and let's talk about it. And again, to that point, there's been things that I brought you that you challenged me on that I had to go back and review for myself and come back to you and tell you, you know what, you challenged me on this, and I'm thankful that you did. You were right. I needed to course correct. I was too far off in the weeds, being me. And again, having been my friend for 30 years, you know what that looks like. You know what I'm saying? You can say, gee, you out in the weeds a little bit, you got to reel it back in. So I appreciate that. But that's what a foundation and building up trust over time, and allowing somebody the freedom and the time to kind of sit with information and see, does that resonate with them or not?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
That has to be the foundation. Skepticism can be reframed as an important tool for discernment. And rather than using skepticism to dismiss everything, we can use it as a way to seek clarity, to ask the right questions, to search for truth in a balanced and a constructive way. That was kind of like the last thought I wanted to kind of leave with this, E. Whatever else you want to add on to it.
No, I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm just appreciate just being able to talk about this stuff. These
Absolutely.
matters are very important, man. Skepticism and I just wanted to say that skepticism is definitely neutral. I will say it leans more to a negative aspect than a positive, but I could be certainly wrong. But it's definitely a tool to use to help us along the way. I really does. Too much of it, that's it. And too little of it is you know what I'm saying? So there's this nice little balance that
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
that's the interesting
The
part
more you
about
use
it.
that skepticism, the more you're leaning towards negative.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Absolutely, bro.
That's pretty much my thought. But I didn't know you have any closing call to
I'm
action.
good, bro. I'm good. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yes, we do have a call to action. I'm sorry. See, I'm missing my cue.
No, you fine,
I
man.
also wanted to say there is a quote that JFK had on secrecy. There's a long speech he had on that, and that's a good speech to go listen to and to hear why skepticism comes about sometimes, right? Our call to action this week: practice intentional skepticism. Okay, choose one idea or assumption you often accept without question. Look into it, challenge it, and see what clarity it brings. Okay, that's the call to action. Practice healthy skepticism. Choose something, and again, this is the important point: an idea or assumption you often or already accept without question. And then look into that, challenge it, and see what clarity you come across by challenging that idea, asking the right questions, and try for a second to not accept it on face value, and then try to go and build the case with data, with information. All right.
That's
Any other
awesome.
closing thoughts on that one, E?
No, I'm good, man. This is let your words count.
Yes, sir.
Let them count, y'all.
Absolutely.
And I'm signing out. This is Ethan Merriweather.
Gary Gant.
Gary Gant. Please like, share, and subscribe. God bless you. Good night.
Take it easy.